What's up, Previews World, and welcome to our live stream. We're going to be talking Phenomena from Abrams Books with Brian Michael Bendis and Andre Lima Araujo. And we're going to see if I can say that twice. So, Hidden Comic Shops, April 24th from Abrams Books. Phenomena, Matilda's Quest is the follow-up to 2022's Phenomena, Volume 1, Golden City of Eyes. This is the story of a young boy named Boldon and his irritable warrior friend Spike, both survivors of an event that took over Earth's years ago, but Matilda's quest is about the third member of this journey. Matilda takes the driver's seat in a sense, as Boldon and Spike globetrot with her across an Earth that is like ours, but not at all. One of the things I really appreciate about this and fascinates me about this book is that the visual world tells a whole story, as it should, which is important because in Phenomena, story is described as currency. So we're going to elaborate on that and more with this week's guest, Brian Michael Bendis.
Hey, hi.
Hey, what's up, Brian? And Andre Lima Araujo.
Excellent pronunciation of my last name. Who taught you that?
You. Oh, you like 5 minutes ago. So, guys, thank you for doing this. I appreciate you coming on and talking about this book.
And thank you for that excellent and good introduction. That's a really good assessment.
Very good. Very good.
I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. When I give you good introductions, it means I like you guys. So this is the second volume we're moving into, right? We've met Matilda in Volume 1, but can you catch us up to speed how the story has evolved into Volume 1? And like either way, whoever wants to jump in.
Well, in Volume 1, we meet everybody. We meet our three heroes, Bolden, Matilda, and Spike, and how they know each other, and they're kind of like three kind of orphaned souls of the phenomenon. They each come from a different place, and in the first book, we meet their partnership, and they're successful in thwarting a very large darkness that is overtaking part of the world. And by the end of this first volume, they know each other, they understand each other, and they get a sense of what brought them here. And by the end of the first one, they realize, and Matilda herself is given enough kind of like internal power to maybe return home and face the reasons she left. So and that's kind of the promise at the end of book 1. And I'm very happy to tell you that in book 2 right away, that's what this is, that the three of them are now friends and partners and found family, and they support Matilda in her return back to her home, which is a whole nother part of the phenomena called Valencia Verona. And it's very much part of the English countryside in London. And we go to that part of the world to see how it's been affected by the phenomena. Each page giving us little clues to what the phenomena was and what it's done to us. And throughout the whole second volume, we meet an entire new cast of characters, an entire new designed world by Andre, and also uncover a lot of the secrets of the phenomena. Not all of them, but enough so you get a sense of what's happened and why everyone's acting the way they're acting, and also sets us up for Phenomena Book 3, which amazingly Andre and I have already completed and will be out here. So if we're talking, it's such a privilege. I was saying to Andre the other day, it's such a privilege to be able to have finished the third volume and talk about Volume 2 and the promise of Volume 3 with such confidence, because that, most published authors just hope for something like that. It's such a gift that we're able to tell you that. And in Volume 3, we get to deliver on all the promises of this book, Volume 2.
Awesome.
Yeah, like Brian said, like the idea that we have 3 of these is amazing. The 3 are done, and I like to think, like for book 1, for example, I think that Brian gave a great summation of what happens between the books, but I really like the idea that we got for book 1, where you go into the action with the characters, and they live in this strange new world, and they don't have much time to think about things. They just need to act and to solve the problems that they have. But in book 2 that's coming out now, we really start to take a breath and really analyze the world and really start to think what happened, how it happened, where all of this came from. We start to develop those questions a little bit, and they really get to be fleshed out on the third book to come. But really, the second one is it's just another big. For those who read the first one, you can pick up the second one. If you never read the first one, you could, but if you don't, you can read the second one and get this brand new adventure with this brand new group of characters that are friends right from the get-go. So it's like fun from page one. That's what was pretty much the point, I think, with this title for both me and Brian. Let's just have fun, have the characters having fun with us.
Also, as you had mentioned in your introduction, the star of this entire graphic novel experience for me and for many people who read volume 1 is Andre's work and the visual way the story is being told. It is specifically designed that it's visuals first everywhere we can go, and everywhere Andre turns the camera shows us something new, but something designed specifically towards the story that we're telling. And just for people my age, I'm very inspired by like how Frank Miller said he wrote for G.F. Darrow on Hardboiled, and I looked at that very romantically about how to collaborate with someone who you're just trying to like prompt all of this stuff. And so that's for me the very special difference of this graphic novel series is we are in Andre's world, and it's a wonderful place to live.
Actually, I'm going to ask Johnny to throw up that page again, because I mean, if a picture's worth 1,000 words, then
yes, this is one of my absolute favorite spreads of the entire series. I'm going to embarrass you, Andre. It stunned me when it came in. And again, we've been working together now for years. So there's a base level of I'm ready for some awesomeness. And then the second book came in, and page after page after page looks like this. And I'm stunned, and then also realize I have to figure out how to tell this story with as few words as possible to get out of the way. Do not cover up anything that you're seeing. And it just was a great treat.
So actually,
I appreciate that very much.
Sorry, go ahead, Andre. Go ahead.
No,
Andre,
I just want to say that you cannot embarrass me, first of all, and secondly,
yes, I can.
Secondly, thank you very much for the nice words. Geoff Darrow is one of my favorites. So every time you feel like you're stepping on your hero's path, you feel good. So thank you, Brian.
Speaking to that, and speaking of the book, or the artwork in the book, I noticed it. This is in black and white. Why not color?
So actually,
go ahead.
I'm
please.
sorry.
No. That's just you. No.
I was going to. We need to credit Brian with this one. That's why I was going to talk.
I was going to take blame.
Yeah, no, I give you credit, because I always wanted to do a black and white book, but when we started discussing this one, it had not occurred to me. So Brian suggested it to me because I had sent him some of my pitches and published pitches of with different stories and stuff that he saw and that inspired both of us, and him in particular, to create this very imaginative world with me. And Brian, because all the stuff that he saw from my pitches was in black and white, he suggested that it should be black and white, and he proposed it to me, and I was immediately enamored with the idea, because there is a visceral power with black and white, first of all, that I think it unleashes the reader's imagination in a different way, because the reader needs to be engaged with the story in a different way. You will imagine the colors where they don't exist, simply. And then if you read this book, I think it's pretty obvious that I love manga, I love Japanese comics, and those have been one of my foundations as an artist. So in a way, to create something that emulates that was one of my goals. And I'm really happy that I got to do it with Phenomena.
Actually, and shout out to that too.
Yeah, and it really is that first of all, number one, I love the black and white aesthetic. The first 10 years of my career were making black and white crime graphic novels, and I have a deep passion for that look, even though it's very different from what Andre is doing here. But over the course of the years that I was working in black and white, it was a lot of pushback in the marketplace about, like, people just wanted color and black and white isn't complete art or something. And it was always very frustrating to me. And then over the years, there's always been a handful of books that were in black and white that did find their audience, and that audience did not care that the books were in black and white. Things like Bone and Walking Dead, and so and all of them, manga and anime, and while that was going on, I keep seeing Andre sends me the work in black and white, and it just hit me on a very visceral level. And that was not to take away from any of his collaborators and colorists, of which I've worked with and will work with again. I absolutely love them. There's just something about the aesthetic of it. And thinking about the audience for this book and what they're, I just thought that, what, let's take the bigger swing and let's do something that, and I was so grateful that Abrams agreed. And so we wanted to be something that was different in the marketplace. There's a lot of YA books right now that are, under the umbrella of some other creators, are really, like, there are a lot of people really, doing the Dog Man Raina thing, and that's very cool. But we also think that some of that audience will be evolving and maturing into looking for other graphic novel experiences, and let us be there for them.
No, I'm glad you said that, because, like, looking at this, I like acknowledging that this is a YA book. I also was looking at this and was like, forgive me if I'm speaking out of turn here, but I saw a little apple seed in there. You know what I mean? Like, I saw a little, like, it was just like a little bit of everything. And I'm sort of like, if I was 15 or 14, this is the type of thing that, like, would immediately suck me in. Like, I would have been obsessed about this, like, for the next 3 years. So it's great to hear you guys say that. We got some comments here. I've got the first volume of this book. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and the same person also said that he was heading this book for pre-order, so I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and for people who always are asking us what's the best way to support the book, pre-order. Put your order in now. Go to your local comic store, or however it is you buy books all over the world, and you can get it. And because it's at Abrams Comics Art, comic stores will have it, but also bookstores everywhere will have it. So you can order it from wherever you order it from. It's literally the best way to support books. Any book, any author, no matter how big or small.
Right.
Yeah, and just to speak to what you said before about this being YA and all that. It's funny because in the beginning, like, we didn't start this book as a YA thing. We just started working on it, and I started doing designs, and Brian coming up with ideas, and we were talking. And then, we started fleshing it out, and we started looking what it was, and it was a YA book on some sense. So there is, for example, some stuff that I sketched for the first book that never made it to the pages because it was getting a bit grittier, for example, or a bit more violent. Some type of characters, that wouldn't fit in then in what we were building. So it was an interesting process in the beginning of the book to really discover it, and we discover it through by creating stuff and sending to the other person, and the other person would come up with new things. And it was just like a ping pong match between me and Brian in the beginning when we were creating it and fleshing it out, and it kind of presented to us as a YA book.
Yeah,
but at the same time, you don't need to, because you were saying there's some maple seeds, there's some this and that. I don't think that you need to dumb it down artwork or text wise, or even in the way that the characters look. It doesn't need to look like a cartoon, Saturday morning cartoon. It has all the work that I do for other titles as well, all the detail, all the perspective. Brian comes in with all the well-crafted dialogue. It's just a slightly different tone to it all.
Brian, you were saying something?
Yes, I was going to say, and now I forgot, but no, I will tell you that the best, it's when you're creating something, I have learned, like, don't label it, just let it be. And so while the whole time we were making Phenomena, I had no idea what it was. And then when it was revealing itself, and I know we call it YA, but to me, it's like an all ages book. It's for everybody. Once it was revealing itself to live in that space, and not all my work does, I was delighted. And then someone else comes along and says, "Oh, it's YA." I'm like, "Oh, okay, thanks." That happened to us on Scarlet and a couple other books where someone else put a label on it after we were done, and I went, okay, yeah, I never thought that while I was doing it, but I can see why someone else would think that. So
absolutely.
And also independent comics are a mixture of like not safe for kids and safe for kids, and that includes a lot of my work. So I like to like point out that if you're a fan of Miles Morales or any of the books that would be, you know, technically YA at Marvel, this definitely fits in that vein. Like if you miss my Marvel work, this I think would be an exciting different kind of thing.
Johnny wanted to shout out a comment here. Which comment were you talking about, Johnny?
You read a comment that we have when you have a chance.
Definitely enjoy Brian Michael Bendis' indie titles more than his mainstream titles.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. Well,
I appreciate that. They're all written and created with the same passion and collaboration. Like there's no difference in my mind. Everything that has my name on it, we treat very seriously. But you know, the indie titles and the stuff that we're doing at Abrams and Dark Horse, obviously I'm trying to make the most out of the experience that's been offered to us, and that's to create some really big swings and really try some different things. And I think a lot about why people buy independent comics in this day and age. Like there's so much content in the world. There's so many stories and music and movies and TVs and podcasts, and people are still going to the comic store to spend money on a brand new idea. And that audience, I think, is very passionate and hungry about new stuff. So it's up to us to really deliver and take big swings and make sure that it's worth the support that they're giving us.
One of the things I love about these interviews is like you guys are taking us to church right now, like in a lot of ways. Like you're giving, you know, you're explaining the process and the just the thought process behind this. And I think just creatively, that's always really fascinating. I actually wanted to get into the fact that this project started at DC. Like it was it something that cooked up around I love to say Losh, around Legion of Superheroes. Like was that what happened?
Yeah, kind of around then. You know, I had on top of working at DC, I also had my shingle up at DC, so we were creating a lot of stuff. And then everyone that we were working with was let go, and it was clear that there was a new chapter starting over there. And at the same time, we were very aware, like the book market had evolved and changed so much, and the pandemic had kind of stepped on the gas on that, and really things were evolving very quickly in a lot of spaces. And sometimes like Miles and Riri are like in that space. Like I'll go to Barnes and Noble and there's Miles like right next to Dogman, and I'm like, wow, what a wonderful. And at first I go, what a wonderful space that now exists in comics that did not exist when I was growing up. This whole, you know, and I couldn't help but like think about like my generation of comic creators, and we've all grown up making comics based on the comics we read. And what will this next generation that has this wall of YA as, you know, their base, what will their comics be like in just a few years, right? And we're just now entering that space where people who grew up with Raina are making their comics. And I wanted to see what our part of it was, and Andre did too. And we were introduced to our agent Janine, and she introduced us to Charles at Abrams, and then he put us as part of his outstanding lineup of comic creators like Marjorie Liu and Alex Ross, and it's been a wonderful experience. We just wanted to see what the experience would be like outside of the wonderful experience of, you know, just the comics market. And yeah, we were so lucky we were able to achieve that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that one thing that Ryan was touching. When we got the book in our hands, we both wanted to try this. Let's put it out as a book. Let's try. And with Janine, the book agent, she got an auction for the book. So we talked to a bunch of different publishers. But I remember that when me and Brian were in the meeting with Charlie, you know, in the end, our editor, he was so passionate about it. He became really a champion of this book. You know, once the meeting ended, we said, this is the one. It's Abrams. It's Charlie, because he was so into it. Like he was all over the book and all over the idea and the the idea of doing more than one book and all that. He was so passionate about it that it was immediate.
Awesome.
Yeah, and on top of that, here I'll show you. We get it gets published in all these different languages now.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. It's a whole different publishing experience than some traditional independent comics get.
Absolutely. Johnny, you had okay, Brian, how's it how is it working with the best Portuguese artists in ALA?
I will tell you, I agree with that. We are now 3 graphic novels into our collaboration, and it has been a constant state of amazement, and me having to rise to the occasion of matching his contributions to this. That's the best feeling in the entire world. It just is. It's like, I have just to find the collaboration that makes you just have to be better.
Gotcha.
Well, I appreciate that.
Andre, you could have just told me I could call you ALA. We could have saved a lot of heartache at the beginning.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I do sign that, and a lot of people call me that in Portugal.
And one day I'll get to Portugal. We keep dancing around the trip to Portugal for the 2 of us.
You must, because I never met Brian. You know,
we never met.
We've never been together.
Wow. Oh wow!
I have no idea if he's tall or short. I don't know.
You have a little bit of an idea, anyway. I am Andre. I'm coming to Belgium. Is that near Portugal?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah,
I'll be there. A couple of hours in plane.
Oh, is it? Okay, all right.
Yeah. So
on the map,
you won't be able to drive.
It was only an inch away. So I thought
yeah. Yeah.
So we got another comment here. One reason I think indie comics and manga is it feels more risk can be taken. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
It's also expectation. Like I said before, thinking about, like, some people read mainstream comics because there's a comfort there that Spider-Man will win, and Captain America will do the right thing. And people reading indie comics are kind of sometimes looking for that a different kind of expectation, like surprise me, delight me, show me something I can't see right now for free on YouTube,
Absolutely.
And that's the part I take pretty seriously. And also you're dealing with beyond trying to deliver something to the audience, that the artist says, I have something that has to come out of me. Like, I honestly don't care if anyone, like you liking it is secondary to the fact that I passionately need to tell the story.
Right. Just get it out of my system.
And that's a very, and I have found as a reader that when I'm reading something where you can tell, oh, this needed to happen, it's the best feeling. Some of our best comics were made that way. Generations.
Yeah, I was dying to do more creative own stuff when we got to Phenomena. I remember that Brian wrote me, and I wanted to work with Brian for a while because I was working at Marvel, and then Brian went away, so we never got the chance. Actually, I told this Brian already. My first gig was at Marvel. It was a script written by Jonathan Hickman. That's how I began my career as a comics professional. But it was supposed to be with Brian, so like Phenomena could have happened like 6 years ago if that was the case, but we didn't meet there.
Because then you started working with Sam, who's one of my best friends, Sam Humphreys, and I was like, oh boy, look at this. But also with once your friend is working with someone, it's kind of rude to like try to slide in there and get in, start your own collaboration. So, and people do that in comics all the time, and it's not cool. So I try to be cool about it. So I, kind of have to wait your turn patiently for the collaboration to have a pause so you can like slide in there and see what happened. But what we did, for people who want to know, like I didn't know Andre, and I to bite off this big giant collaboration without knowing each other would have been kind of goofy and inappropriate. So what I did was brought him into a couple of our projects that we're doing at DC, and he did some Young Justice with us, some Legion with us, and it was just to get a sense of like, do we like each other as much as I like his work? And those are two different things, right? Yeah. And thankfully he we right away I was like, oh my God, I hope we get to do this, and we did.
Yeah, and like Brian was I remember that we worked on those things together, and Brian was we both wanted to do more stuff together. And I remember Brian telling me, do you want to do something at DC like Superman or something? I said, I'd prefer to do creator owned, because I was dying to do that for the last like 2 or 3 years before we began doing this, and I couldn't get something going, so we jumped straight into this.
Yeah,
Actually,
and for people who don't know, it was such a great experience, because like when you're meeting someone, you're like, hey, what do you want to write? What do you want to do? Like, what kind of story you want to tell? Andre sent me a bunch of stuff, like a bunch of built cities and characters and designs and ideas and concepts that he'd been playing with, and he sent like I think how many like it was like different pitches. It was like a few pitches, but he had sent it all at once, which I had asked for. And by seeing it all at once, I saw all of it as one big world. Like I didn't see it as different things. I saw it as all one big thing. And I came back to him and I said, what if this is all one big thing? And we were off to the races.
So that's kind of interesting, because like, how long have you been sitting with these concepts, Andre? Has this just been something you've been playing with, like just kind of off and on for, I don't know, like a decade?
So,
like sometimes you have those stories, right?
Yeah, like I have stories that have been with me for a while, and like I have two things that I want to do with my career that I'm doing, which is within creator on comics, is to either do it with people like Brian or with Rick, for example, Rick Remender, which where I have done another book with him. So like these writers that I really admire, or do it on my own. So I have a bunch of ideas. Like Brian saw the pitches that have pages and characters and all that. So I do them, and I have some that are older, some are more recent, and I show all of that stuff to him. But for Phenomena, like it's all new. He saw all that stuff, and he kind of proposed it. What if this was all one story? So I really like the idea that was just one of the basic things is this is an explosion of imagination, so anything goes. But at the same time, it needs to fit together, so it needs to belong. So when Brian gave me the first like clue to what the story could be, I started designing stuff that visually would fit together, and then I would pass it to him, and he would, started picking up those characters and creating things with them and putting them in places that I also had designed, and then I would draw more stuff based on that, send him again. So it was like this back and forth, but definitely I was pulling from some years of building up of things that I wanted to do, like we said before, all the influence that I had with the Japanese manga stuff. So there are lots of references there that I was like kind of blowing up, dying to do.
So, and also there's a lot of references to European comics and different just different time periods of comics as well. It's not just and what we've done is this is Phenomena is a world of exploded imagination. So these references are actually part of the story, and we love being able to like you mentioned like Appleseed or Akira. I saw in your back there. These things that are a big part of it, but it's also part of our. We've discovered in thinking about our favorite creators that so many of our favorite creators introduce us to their heroes. Like I know Frank Miller I know Will Eisner because of Frank Miller. When I was a kid, Will Eisner goes, Will Eisner did this. And I'm like, and so we're able to go, oh, look at this and this and this. And maybe that'll get people to go check out some of these great classics and stuff.
Absolutely. And no, you can see it on the page. Like you can see that, there's influences like, just seeping out of the page. What do we got here, Johnny? I managed to get a hold of Brian Michael Bendis and Twitch Vaughns plus Hellspawn. One thing I like is how the text doesn't
spawn too. That's good. Sorry.
He'll spawn, right? One thing I like is how that indicates a lot. One thing I like is how the text doesn't ruin the images behind them. Would love to see the text return to comics. Thank you very much.
And I appreciate that. And particularly for Phenomena, as I said, it's actually like one of the biggest challenges is any word choice I make is covering up something, even if it's just beautiful sky. I have to really consider whether the words I'm using are doing a better job telling the story than what Andre is showing. Right, so it's show way before tell. And even on the stuff that looks very imaginative and probably has a story behind it. It definitely does have a story behind it. Like
Mhm.
everywhere we turn, even that, like, I love this eye. Andre did this eye, and this is the best version of the yes and that we do while we collaborate.
Mhm.
He turned the London eye into like an actual eye that's just like looking at everyone. And I immediately wrote a scene where the characters just start staring at the eyes, staring at them, and nothing comes of it. They're just staring at it. Because
it's one of my favorite scenes in the book. That one, I think that's one of the best. And by the way, Brian is underselling his work on this book, because not only did it, like I sometimes think that he put himself under a lot more work than he could have, because
absolutely
picking up my drawings just then to write stuff with them in some occasions, and letting me go nuts on these pages, and then you have to pick up the pieces and go with it, like it's sometimes it's an harder job than to just go and write and your description of what you want it to be. So and then you have all the dialogue that Brian is so well known for, and deservedly so. It's all there as well.
Well, I appreciate that, but even my dialogue choices are different than what I would do, like in a crime book or something that would take place in a modern sense or in a sci-fi sense. But but it's looking at all of the choices Andre made and make sure my choices match or accentuate them everywhere we can go. I appreciate that. But that's the job of a comic writer. No matter who you're working with, you should be able to collaborate with the visual and remember that comics are visual first, no matter who you're working with. Everyone, they've already made their decision on whether they like it or not by looking at it, and it's up to us to then take it to the next level.
All right, no, elimination is part of the editorial process for sure. So I imagine you kind of spoke about this a little bit, but I was hoping you could elaborate a little bit more on this, Brian. I imagine on a lot of projects you've been the initiator, right? Like it's been like kind of you're the first person in the driver's seat at the very least. But Andre's ideas came first, and I was wondering, what is it like letting someone else start? Like, is it like a little bit of chaos, but you're kind of embracing it?
It's actually not that different from working with the other creators that I work with. It's just seeing what Andre is capable of and how he's building what he's building is just making sure that I'm doing what I can do to get out of the way when I need to get out of the way and be there next to him when he needs me next to him. And that goes with Mike Oeming and Alex Maleev. Everyone I work with at this level, this high level of collaboration, that's the job you might be like the first person in the door as I've written script first, but that's the job isn't then to lead, but then to support and then to come back in at the end and lead again, if that makes sense, if that's the case. But that's my favorite part. It's not even it's everything else we do in comics is to get to this space where we're going back and forth on pages.
Yeah, and it's important just to also to say, like, I don't want this to be a misunderstanding. It's not like I drew a story and then Brian comes in the end and puts the balloons with the text. That's not what
I wish.
I have a script. Brian wrote a script, like there is the only thing is that I started drawing stuff before we had a script, but we had an idea that we had talked about, and I think Brian wrote like a tagline, and then he got out of the way so that I could develop it visually to something that I wanted to do. So like characters and place, I started drawing them and sending it to him. Perfect. And then he would say, like, it was like a ping pong match. So he would get it and write me in emails like, we can use this for that and for that. Like, we started seeing possibilities with the work that we did. And then he wrote like a full script with the story that he was pulling from the visual stuff that I was sending him, which is like basically conceptual art for when you get in the beginning of a movie. So instead of, the only difference here was that we didn't have a script to begin with.
I will say, and not to, and again, Andre is right. I'm being a little self-effacing. There's each graphic novel is about 1,000 pages of typing for 150 pages of. It's a lot of words that no one will ever see, but Andre. But that's great. I don't mind it. It's just that's how much goes on behind the scenes for me to be quiet.
Yeah, and by the way, Brian has a line that it's in the start of every script that he does, and I love it, which is he types, "I'm telling you a story so that you can tell a story," and I really like that.
Took me years to get there, but that's our job. It's like, here's a version of the story. I thought about you with every fiber of my being, every choice I made. Do it if you want, and if something else pops in your head because of it, that's what this is made for.
That's great. Hey Johnny, that's the part that we're going to pull and put on social media. That's a great line right there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So surprises. Let's talk about maybe just some of the surprises you guys experienced throughout this process, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure there's things that you're sort of like, I didn't plan for that, but this came out perfectly, or great, or just like wonderful, just a wonderful surprise in itself. Anything in particular that stood out?
Yeah, but it's Andre's choices showing up, particularly like that one you just pulled up of the big spread of the fall of the Golden City of Eyes. That you know, all I said was someone's telling the story of the last graphic novel and they're getting it wrong and they're overtelling it. Like it's stories becoming legend, and it offered us an opportunity. And I got really excited, because you want to recap, you want to tell people what's going on, you want to have that exposition, but we had accidentally created a machine, because it's a story about stories, that we're able to like revisit the first volume without wasting pages. Someone is retelling the story, but by getting it wrong, they're letting us know what's going on in the new story. Oh, I've never done that before, and it got so exciting to me that the recap was also offering a look into the new world, and whether or not you read the first book or not, it's there, and you can see from the reaction of the characters that this isn't what happened in the first volume, and that got very excited for me. And also Andre, in one of the spreads of his reinterpretation of the Golden City of Eyes, I think I wrote him, we should have done that in the first book, like what you just did. So beautiful. So I'm glad that we got to get both.
What about you, Andre? Was there any surprises that came along during this process?
Absolutely. Like the part that I've described, how we started doing this story, like we didn't plan to do any of that. And really, even the way, you know, that as we were fleshing out the story, I remember that we came to a point where we were starting to realize the tone of the story. So we were like in chapter 2, I think. That's when we were starting to realize that this was, and when Brian came up with, I haven't even thought about it, you know, but I was just going with it. Brian was the one saying, this is a YA book, you know, and so, and we looked back and it was true. That's what it was, like no guns, were choice that we were making instinctively, and then led us to this realization further when we were deep into book 1. And even as a funny story, there's a panel on book 1 that I had to go back and edit, because it had someone showing the middle finger, and we thought this is popping up way too much.
It was like 80 pages in, and we were our first like naughty bit. I'm like, we probably don't need it. Yeah,
Brian said it, and he was right. He was 100%, because I thought it was funny. And again, you know, for me, I come from this very different tradition of reading all kinds of books. And in Europe, you get, you know, all the naked ladies and all that stuff with Milo Manara. Like that stuff is all over the place. And then from Japan, you get all the naughty stuff. Like, for example, from one of my biggest influences, and I think it's one of the biggest influences on this book, is Dragon Ball. And you have all the stuff with the naughty bits, as Brian was saying, and like for me, that stuff has always been integrated in this adventure kind of books. But he was completely right when he told me, like, you know, that guy showing the middle finger, I don't think we should have him. And I looked back, and he was right. He's completely out of place.
Well, there's a famous anecdote about the movie Galaxy Quest, where it's a PG movie, except Sigourney Weaver's character keeps saying the F word, like that's the joke, and you can, and so they're like, hey, if we just take out the 6 F words, this is a family movie, and there's literally nothing else about it that's inappropriate. And sometimes if you watch Galaxy Quest, you can see the dub where she's saying the F word, but they changed it.
Okay.
And particularly when she's yelling at the computer. So I thought about that. That was in my head. And I'm like, yeah, there's one middle finger. It doesn't make a mature reader's book.
Favorite characters and phenomena. Like I could tell you, I'm a big fan of Spike. But what are your favorite characters?
Well,
Spike.
I deeply love them all. It's like saying to your dad, pick your favorite kid. But we deeply love them all, and I'm excited that you like Spike so much, because I think the surprise of the third volume is that we really pull the curtain back on who he is, where he came from, and who his friends were before this all happened, and why he's on this journey. That was my favorite part of writing this entire series. Is like we know the beautiful tradition of the reluctant hero, but there's something behind this that I'm very excited to show everybody. And also, listen, Bolden and Matilda are based on our children of a certain age. Both of them have aged out of who they are in the graphic novel, to the point where when the second volume showed up at our house, my son London, who is not Bolden but knows that he is very influential to the character, literally said, "Oh, I'm excited for people to read who I used to be." And I went, "Wow, that's pretty." I didn't even put that in his head. He figured it out.
That's great, actually. And you said Spike is your favorite, also, Andre?
Yeah, I did, and there's a reason why. Because like Spike is a different creature from Bolden and Matilda are kids, so they are human, and Spike is not. And in the beginning, you will probably you can see that in the first few pages, Spike, I hadn't figured out how to draw him yet 100%. So there are some stuff, like it evolves a bit in the beginning. I think it happens to everyone that creates like these out of nowhere alien type figures. You can see that in many books. Like the characters don't look exactly the same when you are 2 or 3 volumes in. And like when it was progressing, and I remember feeling it at a certain point that I had figured it out how to draw him from like every angle, and I was so happy with it. And now I can draw him with my eyes closed. It's one of my favorite characters that I ever created, and that I can draw in any circumstance, like his face, his head. I can see it in my head in like 3D, rotating him, draw him. So I got addicted to drawing him. And I remember then volume 3, I was just drawing him all the time, because like Brian was saying, it really is big moment. I think he has a lot of big moments, but when book 3 comes in, people will see it. And but even in book 2, there's a lot of Spike, and I could never get enough of drawing him.
Spike is also, of all the characters particularly in the leads in the front, it's the most truly original character, both in design and in concept. So like both Matilda and Bolden are original characters. There's something extra level original about what's going on with Spike. I can't think of like when you think about our influences, of which we're wearing on our sleeve here, Spike's is not obvious to me.
Okay, interesting. Actually, one thing I also want to point out about Spike, and actually I guess it's also about Brian, your writing style sometimes. I've noticed that you write really great irritable characters.
you just hit Andre's favorite part of the whole book. Was we were looking for we were looking for Spike's tone in like early days, and then in the darkest days of the pandemic, I wrote him. I go, "It's Larry David." Like I found it. Like that's it. Like that's the voice. And
it was a stroke of a genius. I have to say.
Obviously
that one.
It's very different from that, but that energy, that Larry David energy, is exactly what needed to bring it all to life in the scenes.
That's great, actually.
It was, because it made him truly unique. Like I love that so much. Imagining him with Larry David's voice, because like he is the reluctant hero, like Brian was saying, and you think usually the reluctant hero is very quiet and samurai like, seen from the back and just coming when he needs to be there and then goes away. And like Spike is not like that at all. He's that stuff. But he also gets extremely irritated when he needs to, because Bolden is talking to him, for example, way too much, and he just wants him to shut up. And when I was reading that dialogue that Brian wrote, for example, in the first book, when they meet, and Brian is Bolden is talking, and Spike turns to him and say, what is this noise that's coming out of your mouth? It's just so annoying. Please stop. And I just thought that was one of the funniest things that he wrote, because it comes out of nowhere for that character.
And then, not to spoil, but in volume 3, you get to see a little hint of how Spike grew up, like what Spike was at Bolden's age. You get to see why Bolden would be so annoying to him.
Gotcha. That was great. Looking forward, what can readers expect from Phenomena?
Well, I'm gonna embarrass Andre again. I think that the buy-in here is what Andre has accomplished. It is a page after page after page of the most beautiful comic art I've been associated with. It's among the very best graphic novels that I've ever seen or been part of, and I just thinking about why I buy comics, and that this checks almost every box, and that's just Andre. So and what it is it not only the page is beautiful, but they tell a story visually with every page turn. Every time a character turns their head, we're introduced to something new and something exciting and hopefully inspiring. And by the end of all 3 graphic novels, you have an epic tale of character and world building, and we've been working on it for years, and we just can't wait to share it with you. And we took as I said earlier, we took very seriously the fact that we live in a world filled with story, and that this book is about story, and that we have to deliver something completely unique and to what's going on in comics right now, and that's why we're so grateful for people who took a journey with us on the first graphic novel, because we can feel that they're on board with us, and it's such a great feeling.
Absolutely. What about you, Andre? Is there what can readers expect from Phenomena?
I mean, again, Brian is underselling his own work here, because, like, if you like Brian Bendis, you'll get Brian Bendis on this book as well, and a lot of it, and the best stuff that he can produce, I think. So I think that what readers can expect is really something that is brand new, and like the collaboration that we did, because it was this back and forth of ideas, I think really created something that neither Brian or I could have done on our own. Like, if I had picked up those drawings and then written something myself, or if Brian had, because Brian Land came in with a lot of ideas that he had that he wanted to put out, if he had given those ideas or had gone with them for another collaboration, I think that it would be a completely different book. So I like to think that this is something really unique that only the two of us could have done, in the same way that when you get together 2 different creators, it will be something completely unique again. Like, this is pretty original, I think, and I hope that people get the feeling that we wanted to extract from it to ourselves, which is a lot of fun, a lot of adventure, and a lot of emotion as well.
And to really hammer home the point of how strong this feeling was between Andre and I while we were making the book actually becomes about that at one point, where a character, Lily, describes the beauty of collaboration, which is there's this, and then there's this, but there's a third thing that we can only get to with each other. Like, and that's the book is about trying to achieve that, while Andre and I were actually trying to achieve that.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. If you are looking for this book, it might be in the YA section, but it really is for everybody. Thank you very much, guys, for coming through and talking to me about this comic. Phenomena, Volume 2, or Book 2, Matilda's Quest, hits comic shops April 24th from Abrams Books. It's available pre-order at your local comic shop or PREVIEWsworld pull box, whichever is simpler for you. You guys can hang out with Brian on social media at Brian Michael Bendis. You can hang out with Andrew Lima also on Instagram. Was it Facebook and Twitter, if I remember? Actually, I'll just let you shout it out.
Instagram and Twitter and Threads. I'm around.
Yeah, and for me, go to jinxworld.com. Our newsletter moved over to Jinxworld, and the newsletter is going to be packed full of behind the scenes looks at Phenomena. Andre and I are going to do some deep dive, like almost director's commentary, like looks at the book, because we feel like certainly it deserves it. And so sign up for the newsletter. You'll get all the updates as they come.
Awesome. And you can hang out with me at TJ Comics or at Previews World. Andre, Brian, thank you for joining us again. I really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I know Cons and Comics Pro made things a little bit difficult, but I'm glad we got to land this. So,
was there difficulty? We didn't hear it.
Okay, you weren't privy to that information, but there was a lot of email back and forth with the marketing people at Abrams. So.
Well, thank you for making this happen.
There you go. That's how it should be. You guys should know about that stuff, so it's okay.
Okay.
I also want to thank everybody for watching. Remember, support your local comic shop, as we put it out earlier.
Yeah.
And hey, I'll see you all, every last one of you, at the Spinner Rack. Catch you later.